The NBA Finals starts on Thursday between the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics. This is a matchup I think a lot of people are looking forward to, especially since the Boston Celtics have been in this position before and they've reached the conference finals a bunch. And then the Dallas Mavericks coming on towards the end of the season and then doing what they did in the playoffs so far. I think a lot of people are really interested in the players as well. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown on the Boston Celtics side, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving on the Dallas Mavericks side. But Javon, what are you looking forward to seeing in this NBA Finals, and what do you expect to see in this matchup?
Yeah, as to start off with what I'm looking forward to see, looking forward to see Luka in his first NBA Finals, first and foremost. Also, you have the storyline of Kyrie going against the Boston Celtics. We all know about his tenure in Boston, where he was seen as the leader of that team. And things didn't go as smoothly as people expected. There were a lot of leadership questions and just how he handled leaving the situation, saying that he would be back with the team if they would have him. And that's what kind of started a lot of those questions and just the view that was put on Kyrie following into Brooklyn as well. And it's kind of like Dallas has been his redemption place in order to just clear all those, or he just had a regular season of basketball, no distractions off the court. And it's been solely basketball, which is all we really wanted to see. We always knew how talented he was, but just all those other things kind of drew away from his talent. And I said it to you the first round of the playoffs. Like it was just so good to see Kyrie back in the playoff setting. I feel like basketball really missed his skill set being on display. Through the regular season, it's kind of hard for, your casual fans to really keep up with what he's doing for his squad. But just seeing it in a playoff setting, a national TV setting, it just brings joy back to me to be able to watch a player with his skill set, his high skill level back on the court. And I think he's contributed a lot to this squad. Luka is really benefiting from having a teammate like him. He's never had a teammate of this level. He's never really had a true high level second guy. They tried it with Porzingis. Brunson was kind of a surprise, and they were unable to retain him going into last season. And I think this is the first time we can truly say Lucas has had a dependable number two guy to go to war with each night. And you're just seeing the ceiling of this backcourt duo. Last series, they completely dissected the Minnesota Timberwolves, who were ranked as the number one defense in the whole NBA. And you're just seeing them put on a whole bunch of displays of dominance and offensive excellence and wizardry, whatever you want to call it. That tandem of those two guys has even drawn the title of one of the best backcourts in NBA history offensively, and they're just proving it right now. And, a championship would just cap that off right there. And I'd love to see that. But I would love to see how Luka and Kyrie are going to attack these defensive matchups that are all over the court for the Boston Celtics, because we know that they may not always run the switch scheme, but they are very capable of running the switch everything scheme. And I think that's one of the things the Timberwolves were unable to do, simply because Gobert cannot play out on the perimeter. Also because Karl-Anthony Towns, you do not want him guarding a live ball handler from the perimeter. But when you look at Boston, if you look at Drew Holiday, you're going to take that matchup. You're going to take that challenge. Derek White, you'll take that challenge. Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, you'll take that challenge with switching them onto a Luka or a Kyrie, even Al Horford to a degree. I think that the Celtics will somehow concede some switches, maybe more so with Luka, because we all know ball pressure of like a skinny, frail guy like a Jaden McDaniels isn't going to bother him. Luka's had his most trouble this whole playoffs when Lou Dort from the Oklahoma City Thunder was guarding him. And if you look at his archetype compared to a Jalen McDaniels, while Jalen is more of a thin frame type player, Lou Dort is more of that fullback linebacker type body build. And I think those are the best type of archetypes that you can throw onto Luka. And Al Horford is a big body as well. So I think they may concede that switch, even though he may get cooked a lot. And then also how they're going to handle Kyrie. They're going to try and bring a whole bunch of physicality because he's just so good offensively with the ball in his hands. Like, I'm just excited to see that aspect mostly. Of course, I'm excited to see Boston try to redeem themselves in this finals, and I'll let you touch on them. But just seeing how the Dallas Mavericks are going to attempt to attack this defensive juggernauts on the other side in Boston, and I have some expectations that I'll get into a little bit later. But yeah, just seeing how they go at the Celtics and trying to see if this backcourt can keep it up. And obviously, their supporting guys have been amazing. I think this will actually be a really good finals that we're in store for. So I'm very excited for this one right here.
Yeah, I think you brought up a lot of really good points and a lot of things to look out for. And there are a lot of storylines connected to this NBA Finals matchup. But in terms of on the basketball court, the matchup is something I'm going to definitely be keeping an eye on because matchups in the NBA is so important, especially once you get to the playoffs. And I think this season and this playoffs is a great example of that because when you're looking at these different teams, especially once you get to the playoffs, it's not necessarily who's the quote unquote better team or who has the better roster. It's looking at these individual matchups and how they all come together in the matchup between the two teams. And that's really what determines the outcome of the series. And I think a really good example of that is the Western Conference side of the bracket because you had matchups like the Denver Nuggets and the Minnesota Timberwolves, where the Minnesota Timberwolves were able to combat what the Denver Nuggets did well offensively because of their lineup and who they were able to throw at Jokic and Murray and things like that. And then on offense for the Timberwolves, they were able to attack the paint and attack the rim, especially with Anthony Edwards getting downhill and playing off of that offensively. And even though the Minnesota Timberwolves offense isn't that great, they were able to exploit some holes in the Denver Nuggets defense. But then you move on to the Minnesota Timberwolves and Dallas Mavericks series. Dallas had the edge in that series, and they had a lot of things going in their favor because they had longer athletic bigs that can protect the rim and they can load up on Anthony Edwards because the Timberwolves don't have as many play initiators as some other teams. They only have Anthony Edwards as a consistent play initiator to get the offense going and to attack going downhill so you can load up on him and force other players to beat you. So it just allowed the Dallas Mavericks to exploit some weaknesses in the Minnesota Timberwolves offense. And then on the Dallas side of things, attacking the Minnesota defense, they were able to get downhill with Luka and Kyrie and force the big to make a decision and throw the lob, shoot the shot in the paint, or kick it out to the opposite wing. So things were in Dallas's favor throughout the game on offense and defense in that matchup. And now we're looking at the Boston Celtics and Dallas Mavericks matchup. And I'm just really interested to see how the Dallas Mavericks will guard the Boston Celtics because now they're going up against a Boston Celtics team that has a whole bunch of play initiators. You have Drew Holiday, you have Derek White, you have Jason Tatum, you have Jaylen Brown. So who is Luka and Kyrie going to be able to guard without that rim protection in the back? Because now you have Porzingis to worry about and now Horford to worry about. So the floor is going to be spaced. Those rim protectors can't just camp in the lane and the
Clog up.
perimeter defenders press up and force them into them. So I'm really interested to see how that works out. And on the Boston Celtics side, I'm interested to see how they guard Luka and Kyrie. I think Jason Tatum is the best option for the Boston Celtics to guard Luka because of his frame. He's a big defender with a lot of length. So I think he's their best option. I'm not sure that they will start out with that, but I do think that he is their best option because he has the length and the size to at least make it a little more difficult for Luka than other players, but they still have a lot of other really good perimeter defenders. So I think that's going to be interesting. How will Porzingis come back and play in this finals? I mean, I know I mentioned him, but he's going to be really important because of the pick and pop and things like that and spacing the floor. So it's just those individual matchups and those little details that I'm most excited to see.